I am fantasy and paranormal romance author Leslye Penelope, and welcome to My Imaginary Friends, a look behind the scenes of an author mapping the worlds in my head and making them a reality. Hello, friends. Today is Friday, May 29th, 2026, and this is episode 261 of My Imaginary Friends. I'm Leslye. If you would like to get the links mentioned in each episode, along with the show notes, plus my various thoughts on writing, craft, and the author life delivered straight to your inbox, head over to myimaginaryfriends.net/footnotes and subscribe to the Footnotes newsletter. And if you want to go deeper, consider becoming an imaginary best friend for a few dollars a month to get exclusive content and discounts on my courses and coaching. I would love to see you there. I am doing an experiment where I think we are going live to Substack as well. So welcome anyone on Substack. So I've got a lot of announcements and a lot of book news, and let's get started. So first of all, the pre-order campaign for The Inevitable Undoing of Zahara Douglas is live. I sent out the newsletter yesterday as I'm recording this, and I'm really excited about it. So I almost always do a pre-order campaign. And welcome, Library Addict, you made it live. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Hello, Dreaming Truth. I'm so glad for everyone who's able to come live. So usually for my pre-order campaigns, I will do a book plate, I have bookmarks, and I have a character art card, which is not in front of me right now. But if you've seen the character art, I did it like a Polaroid because, we're in this 90s vibe for this book, and I'm excited about that. But the most excitement that I have is for the zine. So I've spent a couple of weeks working on this little half-page zine from the perspective of Annika, who is the missing twin in the story. And I borrowed a typewriter, and I wanted to create a zine that would just be like, what would a 16-year-old girl do? So I did record the process. I have a lot of videos on my phone that I have to edit and make into some sort of like behind the scenes of the zine. Now, growing up, I did not actually make zines. I had friends who did, and I looked on from afar. So this is actually my first time. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, the zine looks fun, Library Addict says. And I had a great time making it. I had a great time copying and pasting. That's actually, well, like cutting out things from magazines that I actually downloaded from the Internet Archive. So I wanted it to be, for the most part, as authentic as possible. Like, what would Arnica actually have made? And I didn't have any magazines from the 90s. If I had planned a little earlier, I could have probably bought some off of eBay. But I discovered that Internet Archive has a lot of, not the ones I wanted all the time, but they have a lot of magazines from the 90s. So I downloaded issues, printed them out, then cut them up with scissors and pasted. And so I was trying to make it as analog as possible. There are a couple of things that I just ran out of time and I did digitally. But like 75, 80% of this is completely analog, which I'm super proud of. So anyway, if you'd like to get a zine in your hand, I am mailing these out on around publication day. If you sign up for the pre-order campaign, which is lpenelope.com/pre-order. Link is in the show notes. And I will be talking more about that in the future as well, since we're a little over 2 months till release day. Also, Zahara made a list of books that feed an elder millennial's 90s nostalgia from She Reads magazine. I thought that was really fun because it's not the only one. I think elder millennials, depending on your calculations, I consider myself Gen X personally, but I've seen Zennial, which is that crossover between older geriatric millennials and Gen X. But I'm born in the 70s. I feel like I'm straight up Gen X. And especially because since I skipped a grade, all my social friends and experiences are with people a year older than I am. So I just identify that way. But whether you're a millennial, whether you're a Gen Xer, if you love the 90s, if you're not, if you're a Gen Z, Alpha, however old you are, the 90s were great. They're coming back. We have wide leg pants. Like, we have the same fashion, crop tops, wide leg pants. So much of the fashion has returned for this moment. And I feel like I could be taking advantage of that in some way, but I don't know. I'm doing the best I can. The other book-related announcement is that the Angel Fall flip book is available from my store. And I did a short run with a printer so that you could have the flip book without the ISBN. It is available on KDP and other bookstores, but you have to have an ISBN, which sort of, it's on the bottom of the Angel Fall cover. So I've sold these the past couple of weekends. I've done live sales events, and a lot of people haven't seen them before, haven't even heard of it before. So that's cool to watch people like, you flip it over and it's a whole different cover. It's a whole different book. Formatting this was a challenge, to say the least. And I'm probably going to do a post about that, about my trial and error. Because in my mind, I was like, oh, no, I understand how this works. And then I did a whole one and I ordered a proof. And then I realized, no, I didn't actually understand how this is supposed to work. But we figured it out. We got it together. And Angelborn, there were a couple of old print books from like 10 years ago of Angelborn. I don't think anyone has ever seen a print book of Angel Fall. And now I have realized the dream that I wanted to do last year for the 10-year anniversary. But 11 years is still a thing. Like, all these years are made up. Time is nothing but a made up concept anyway. So I'm very proud of them. I have a limited amount that I will be selling, and with the new covers that I made that I'm very proud of as well. This week's best thing, turned in the short story. So I've been doing this short story project, and that turned out really well. We'll see what the editor has to say, but I do like it. I did a whole retrospective video on that as a part of the short story project, but it was actually fun and motivating for me to kind of do it in public, to document the process live as much as possible. Like, until I was actually drafting, like, everything that I recorded on the video is the time that I spent working on that short story. And then drafting was off camera. I think actually did record a video of me drafting. I decided not to post it because it didn't feel like it was interesting at all. And then revision. But I did so much of it live. And I think that, the feedback I've gotten from people is that they found it very helpful. And so, I love diving deep into someone else's process, especially when they have a process that is potentially repeatable. Not that I'm advocating repeating my process, but I do think that it's instructive and interesting. And I love seeing, like, getting down into the weeds of what someone does and how they think about things and how they come to those conclusions. So that was cool. And actually, Nicole Summer, who I know is an author she's be publishing sometime in the near future, who's also a teacher, told me that, it was a legitimate form of teaching. I forgot the name of it. But that was also a good reinforcement that, like, hey, this is a real thing. That's not just me thinking it's helpful. It's an actual teaching style where you actually see what someone's doing in real time or realish time. So that was also cool. Other part of, the other This Big Best thing is that after many months, it's almost June. I have to look back at the calendar and see how long I've been doing this. After many months of revising, well, maybe 2 months, 2 to 3 months of revising the Blitches outline, I finally have a synopsis, a full 15-page synopsis. It's actually here. Yeah, Times New Roman, double spaced, almost 16 pages that I feel good about for draft 2. So I had to recap first draft sometime last year. I think I did it for Nano last year, which would have been November, as a script, cleaned that up a little bit, started working on the second draft, showed my agent the synopsis, the first few chapters. He had feedback. That was March, I believe. He said we met in March. And since then, I've been taking that feedback, reworking it, testing. And I've done a lot more work on this at the front end than even I usually do. And I usually do a fair amount of work. But I really wanted to sit with this. This idea is really important to me. I think that I just wanted to really do it right. And because I had the idea for such a long time and didn't know exactly how I was going to approach it. And then when the script came out, it was close. But taking my agent's feedback, which really did require retooling and rethinking things. And still, I'm trying not to overwork it. And I don't know what that means for me. I don't know what that looks like for me. I know a lot of people who don't like to plot say that if they plot it in detail, then it's like they've already written it and they have no desire to write it. I don't feel that way because, like I said before, like, a 15-page outline is not a 500-page book, right? There's so much more discovery that has to happen. And I know that I'm going to discover so many more things, no matter how much I work on it at this stage. Generally, by the midpoint, something feels feels wrong or feels like it needs more work. And because I've discovered things up until that point, and I need to leave room for that process. So there's still things in here that don't quite sit right with me, but for the most part, I'm very happy with it. And it's yeah, I, I've talked about going back and forth with the POVs. I originally, when I came to this project, I was like, I want to do something like the movie Weapons. I want 5 POVs, and they're each telling part of the story. And that didn't quite work out. I went back and forth, 1 POV, 5, 4, 3. Right now, we're kind of at 3. And I guess I'll find out when I actually start the second draft if that's going to work. Because for me, there are just things no matter how much planning I do, I won't know until I'm sitting down and I'm embodying the characters in my mind, living through them, and we'll figure that out. And I'm a little bit worried, not worried, concerned / excited because the discovery is fun for me. The planning is fun. This whole thing is like diving deep into it is fun. And then I realized I had bought some books that I haven't read yet that I want to. So I think I'll read them at the same time as doing the second draft. And because I think it's just going to be texture. I don't think it's anything that's going to affect the plot or the characters, the big parts. But I think it will affect a little bit of the magic or how the magic is described or how it actually works on the page. And those are things that can happen in revision. And also just the texture of the world, the story, the history. I haven't done I've done a good amount of research, but not, since this is basically a contemporary story, it hasn't required a ton of research up until this point. But I did buy some books, and there was actually a little course that I bought on like herbology or herbalism, something like that. Something about herbs. I bought it 2 or 3 years ago. I have to go find it because I knew I wanted to write this witch story. And there is an aspect of that I'm wondering how to incorporate. So the next stage for this project will be actually diving into draft 2, sitting with the characters, discovering all the things I don't know yet, while simultaneously doing additional research and getting ready for knowing that draft 3 will have to happen as well, which I've never not done. I've never just done 2 drafts. Like I'm a 5 drafter at least. I did want to talk about giving and receiving feedback. So I had a situation where a new author had asked me for feedback, and I had to give some difficult feedback to this person. And I don't know that it was received. I don't know how it's received. I can't say. I'm not in this writer's mind, but from my perspective, I could understand how the feedback would be difficult to take because I found some issues and I felt like I had to be honest and authentic about it. And I struggled a lot with how to do it kindly and honestly, but also not BS someone and tell them what they wanted to hear. Because at the end of the day, that's not helpful. And it had me thinking back to the times when I've received really difficult feedback. I've talked about, I took a workshop with Junot Diaz, and that would have been 2012, I think. And it was, Pulitzer Prize winning author Junot Diaz. It was a very competitive workshop to get into. There were only 10 people who were accepted out of however many applied. I know there were a lot of applications because I talked to people who wanted to get in. And some of those people are really, well-known authors now. We kind of all started around a similar time, talented, but for whatever reason, I was one of the people who got in, and I was just very excited about that. And I brought a story that I was working on. It was a YA fantasy story, first chapters. I think I've been working on it for several months, and it ended up that when it was my time for the workshop, when we were going over my chapters, I kind of used my chapters as like a what not to do kind of thing. It was a very intense, difficult feedback session of all the things that I had done wrong. And, I knew that I had to develop a thick skin. It was painful, it was hard. But at the same time, in our one-on-one, he gave me a lot of like good feedback about just, potential, skill, ability. Like I didn't know a lot of stuff I hadn't finished a book before. I had never finished a novel. So of course I didn't. I was there to learn, and I was grateful for the learning, even as it was painful. And other people did cry in that workshop. I mean, um, that's not uncommon for like a writing workshop because we're artists and we're sensitive, right? And I look back on how I felt, and actually I that manuscript, it wasn't completed at that point. And I never was able to finish it. And I don't know if it was because of the feedback or if it was because of the feedback on the opening, or because after that, I don't really know why. I think I wanted to finish that. As it turned out, when I came back from that week-long workshop, about 3 or 4 days later, I started writing the first draft of what became Song of Blood and Stone. So it was one day I wrote 10,000 words, the next day I wrote 11,000 words, and that was the first draft. And after that, I was working on Song of Blood and Stone. So while I did not complete the manuscript that I went to that workshop for, and that got, I don't know if the word brutal, that might be overstating it. It felt brutal to me, and that was like my lived reality was it was a very intense, difficult feedback session. But I learned so much, and I still have the notes from that week, and I still review them, and I still look at that notebook, maybe like once a year. So all of that to say that being in the position of having to give potentially difficult feedback does not feel good. And I can understand that for this writer, being on the receiving end might not have felt good. But I only hope that they can take away something, and that I was trying to be as kind as possible while not gassing them up and not making them, both not trying to kill their dreams, because there's a level of feedback that can be soul crushing, being supportive and saying, hey, the core, the idea, the story is good. The execution just needs work. And often, I mean, we all need work. So I guess my takeaway is, a lot of times we talk about how do we receive editorial feedback, beta reader feedback, even like things like reviews, although reviews less so because reviews are for readers. But as a writer, it's important to, as long as the person is not trying to kill your spirit, and if because there is that, and that is a whole separate conversation. Learn how to receive feedback in a way that says, hey, we have to go through the fire in order to become the gold, right? Gold and silver are forged in fire, and we're forged in difficult experiences that help us grow. And I hope that's not being flip, because that's honestly how I feel. Like I've been through many difficult experiences outside of writing that have helped me form my worldview, and inside of writing, getting really hard critiques from various places has been difficult and painful. But as long as you don't quit and you learn from it, that's all we can ask of ourselves, right? Princess says, wow, it's still so amazing that that workshop launched you into that series. It was incredibly inspiring. Like even through all of that, through like the pain and like the difficulty, I left that week, yeah, creatively inspired enough to write what should not be like, I personally physically, like writing 20,000 words in 2 days is insane, right? Like it's hard on the body, it's hard on the mind. But if you can find places to inspire yourself that get your creative juices flowing, even if it's for something completely different. And yeah, looking back, that first draft flowed obviously very quickly, very easily. And then it was like 9 months of rewriting and revising, which is how this process works. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, acknowledging that it can be hard. It's hard for everyone. And hopefully at the end of the day, my hope for every writer is that they find someone who is honest with them. And that's why we say sometimes you give work to friends and family, and they're like, oh, it's really good. And you're like, well, I'm glad, but that's not helpful. Like it's really good can be like an ego boost, but it doesn't make you a better writer. The things that make you a better writer might also make you cry. And we're artists, and that's okay. We get to cry. Um, Announcements. Speaking of which, there's lots of things that I'll be attending and teaching at. And quick rundown, they are on my events page at lpenelope.com/events, I want to say. Our Ink and Magic Mastermind Retreat is September 4th through 6th outside of Baltimore. If you have a completed manuscript or are a published author, we still have spaces available. That's inkandmagicretreat.com. I will be teaching at the Story Beast Build Your Author Empire Conference, which is online, June 27th. I'm teaching 2 workshops, Authorpreneur Path and another one that I've forgotten because I didn't write it down. But I'll put the link in the show notes. And that I did this event last year was craft based. This one is like author business based, which is really nice. If you're in the Maryland area, the Mahogany Books Texture Book Club is reading Song of Blood and Stone in June, and I'll be appearing in person in National Harbor, Maryland on June 28th. I will be rereading Song of Blood and Stone so that I can talk about it intelligently. And I want to do like a reread online. Stay tuned for that because I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that. I'll probably record some videos as I'm reading it and maybe figure out how to do that amidst all the other things that I'm doing. But I definitely want to reread it because, yeah, it's been years. And they've been able to ask me questions about it. I'm like, I don't remember that being in the book. That's the downside of writing a book every year or year and a half. I'm also doing a workshop for Jane Friedman on July 29th, which is online, is Writing from Your Why, and another in-person Maryland event in August 22nd, the Fiction Makers Conference, which is in Baltimore, if I didn't say that already. There's other stuff. I probably overscheduled myself, so we're looking at 2027 being another year of no at this point. But it's all good. I really enjoy teaching, and I like talking to people. And I love book clubs. There's another book club that asked me to show up, and that's an online one. I think they're reading monsters. I write all of this stuff down, but then it flies out of my head until like the day I have to do it. In terms of filling the well, I've been watching this show called Wild Cards, and it's a Canadian show, but it's on the CW. Amazon Prime. It's a good comfort watch. I was looking for shows that kind of give me the feeling of Leverage, and then I looked up Leverage to see, is Leverage Redemption coming back? So the original Leverage heist TV show. I started watching it when I was researching monsters. They brought it back. All of the original cast, except for the one person who got Me Too'd, was back for it, plus new people. I really enjoyed Leverage Redemption, but it was canceled. I was like very sad about that when I read that. Every season that they got, I think they had 3 seasons of that new show, was just a gift. And I'm going to probably go back and rewatch the original Leverage. But Wild Cards, seasons 1 and 2 have been a good sort of vaguely silly. It's about a con woman who starts working with the police to help solve crimes. Will they, won't they, kind of romance. I started season 3 and I think I'm going to stop because I wasn't feeling what they were doing in season 3, but the first 2 seasons, nice comfort watch. And I watched the first season of The Pit, which was amazing, but incredibly intense and very gross. Like, I don't like gross medical stuff, and they zoom in on the blood and stuff. But like, if you can close your eyes and squint, and I had to turn away each time, it's absolutely worth watching. I need a several-month break before starting season 2 because those episodes are a lot. And then I read Witch Queen Rising by Savannah Stevens, which I mentioned in my newsletter. Very dark, very moody, a story of an outcast, someone who left her community and is forced to come back as she becomes the Prime, which is like the queen of the witches, and has all kinds of family drama, all kinds of community drama, like drama here, there, everywhere. Lots of murder and death. Like I said, it's dark. And so it's darker than it looks on by the cover and the description. So be warned, but I think it's a good read if you're in the mood for that. So yeah, my plans, my goals for the coming week. We're starting draft 2 of Blitches. Draft 2.2, I guess, because I had started draft 2 before and took a break, and we'll just call it draft 2 again. The redux of draft 2. Yeah, and we'll see how that goes. I think the writing, the actual getting the words is not my favorite part. I like the plotting. I like the outlining. I like the replotting. I like revising. Even draft 2 words, I don't like draft 1s. I didn't mind draft 1 of the script though. wish I could write the whole thing. Just write. Maybe I should just be a script writer from now on. Somehow that's a little. It's not easier. It's just different, and maybe I just need different. But I'm excited for the story, and I will get through draft 2, and then I will be able to revise it and have a lot more fun. So that's it for me for this week. Thank you all for coming. Please pre-order The Inevitable Undoing of Zahara Douglas if you have not already. That would mean the world to me. And enter the pre-order giveaway. It is international. I have a lot of international stamps and everything fits in an envelope. So easier than sending books internationally, unfortunately. There is also another chance to get an ARC. If you go to, I'll put it in the show notes because I did not prepare it, but there is a fundraiser for families in Gaza. And a lot of authors have donated books. And so I am giving away a signed copy of The Ark of Zahara if you join that. And that is on my Instagram, and I will stick a link in the show notes as well. But thanks for being here, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. If you would like to get episode show notes and sign up for the Footnotes newsletter, make sure you go to myimaginaryfriends.net. You can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. Email me at podcast@lpenelope.com, and I would really appreciate a rating or review to help support the show.